There is Fabian. He was here the last time, December 23. So yeah, come on over the lift here. Yeah, see, he already pops his foot on his way in. Can't believe this thing is actually entering in here under its own power. So I imagined that this car is gonna come in here and it's all banged up and smoking and limping and having kind of all dents and stuff after being so long in Africa and doing such an adventure, but it actually looks really good. And Fabian, as far as I understood, is trying to sell this vehicle. Ooh.
This is where they try to enter in Spain.
Without a key, you mean?
Yeah. With
yeah, they look decent.
But,
they look
but
decent.
you see, after 10,000,
yeah.
You can see definitely.
Yes.
He was bored.
Well, this is called a door cart.
I know, I found it for 125 euros.
And in the UK, you actually get a car and a door with it for 125. So this is now a well-proven discovery.
Yeah.
Okay, but you got a coolant leak. Fabian took this cover off. He's not running this anymore because this lets the heat from the engine get away a little better. So the vehicle is extremely hot and it's a stupid idea to open this. This thing had a big coolant debacle in Africa, so you drove back and you had to refill every, 100 kilometers?
Actually, it started in Portugal.
In Portugal, okay, that's not around the corner.
No, in Morocco was the brakes. So I was always stopping and refilling and change the water pump.
The oil is fine.
The oil is fine.
Yeah, there's no coolant in the oil.
There's no coolant, no evidence. So the first thing we're gonna do is a pressure test on the vehicle in hot condition here. And then we're gonna check if we find exhaust gases in the coolant. And after that, we're gonna bypass the EGR valve coolers and the EGR valves to see if the problem disappears. Okay, I got my cheap Chinese pressure and coolant fill kit here from Amazon. When we do a coolant pressure test, we're following the LR3 workshop manual cooling system pressure test because it has the values in there, what we need. And there are two different tests explained. One test with removing the coolant reservoir cap and one without. When we test it without the coolant reservoir cap, we fill it to 1.5 bar and check over a duration of 5 minutes. And Land Rover permits a decrease in pressure by 0.15 bar as long as that happens in the beginning of the 5 minutes. The instruction is pretty detailed in my opinion. This cap includes like an overpressure valve, so when I take this off, the system does not have that valve anymore. Now I put this cap on here out of our kit, and now I can put this on here. So green is 1 and Land Rover actually wants 1.5, okay? So without the manual, I would only put it to 1 because that's where green ends. Let's see if it's... No, it's not an obvious leak, so we're gonna have to give it some pressure. Oh, we do that off camera.
I told you it's a mighty small pump.
We can settle at 20 psi because I'm running out of breath. Land Rover permits 0.15 in the first minute and no more than 0.15 even over 5 minutes. We started at 9:40 on the 24th of August, okay? That's German precision. I think we can manage waiting off camera.
Oh, really? The 5 minutes are over and we almost lost 0.2 bars.
I think it's more like 0.15 bar.
No.
Look, 1 dash is 0.2. You have to look in the outer
Yeah,
scale.
I know.
And
but
we started at 20. So it's not obviously losing pressure above what Land Rover permits. So we got 0.4 bar after about 7 minutes. It's definitely losing somewhat pressure here. It could be, of course, a problem with our Chinese pump. In the next test, we're going to check if there is exhaust gas bubbling into the reservoir. That would be the biggest issue we can discover today. This is a test fluid and it's blue. If it changes color when it detects CO2, it goes to yellow. So I think if I blow in there...
Oh, my God.
You can see that even my exhaust gas is changing that fluid.
It's just vibration.
confused with this test, but you know, if it changes color based on my breath within seconds and it's running here minutes, I would think there is no leak in the head gasket. You guys let me know in the comments if this should be running overnight, but I don't think so. I think it would be in seconds.
So is it a CO2?
It's a CO2 detector.
Oh, it's a CO2 detector.
Why don't you blow in? It looks like you're smoking a water pipe. There we go. That was quicker than with me. There's enough fluid in this kit from Amazon for like 20 to 50 tests. This test was negative, positive as the result, but yeah, so that's the first smile.
Looking for a needle in a haystack.
Well, we're gonna find that needle in a haystack.
Oh my God. This engine we built has lasted now 70,000 and the head gasket is still good, so we did not wreck it.
And of course we're not sponsored and we don't want any sponsorship.
Yes, and it's not cheap Chinese.
The box is probably made in EU and that's it. At this moment we know we lose a little bit of pressure during the pressure test, actually more than Land Rover allows. And we know it's not coming from the head gasket because we do not see any CO2. The next thing I suspect to be wrong is maybe the EGR coolers, just because Vera's was leaking and we fixed it and she had only a tiny leak. Maybe this leak here is bigger. So what we're gonna do to test this is actually we're gonna bypass the EGR valve system, which is illegal in Germany, but this is only for testing. And we're gonna bypass the exhaust gas circuit and we're gonna bypass the coolant circuit. This way I suspect that if we are leaking coolant into the intake, we can basically stop this. And then we're gonna drive around for what, like half an hour? I think you can already see the difference. And we're gonna vacuum fill the coolant system. So those are the two things we're gonna do. Now, bypassing the EGR coolant system, I need to understand the hose routing. And then I basically cap off where the coolant enters the EGR valves and where the coolant exhausts the EGR valve. And the only coolant I'm gonna spill in my driveway is actually the little bit of coolant trapped in the EGR valves, okay? Okay, I'm trying not to make a big mess, and this is really hot. So we're gonna remove about, I would say, a third of your coolant. So we're gonna quickly fabricate an EGR blanking plate.
So that was like a 5-minute job? Okay, I got yelled at.
Yeah,
because we took off the cover without me filming.
Good. Now to blank out the EGR coolers, I gotta disconnect 2 coolant lines and block them. This is on Fabian's car 1 line. It goes in here and routes the coolant to the right-hand side EGR cooler, then it goes here in the front over to the left-hand side EGR cooler. And then the return line is back here, the crossover pipe. And then here is a T, so I'm gonna block off this T. There, and we gotta block off this line and make sure it doesn't go clonk.
Oh my God.
Gotta use this special plier here to get this hose clamp off. There it is, okay? So I got this line off as well. So
now it's part.
Everything with your lace in your kitchen, okay? So you can put this in the front hose together with Fabian. I make the next one.
Good.
Beautiful, no?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Perfect.
So everybody else has to Google and search online for an hour and then order it and wait 3 days until it's delivered. And Christian does something like that in 10 minutes on his lathe. He's starting the plug now.
So there's our second plug. This one is a millimeter thicker because I had the feeling the hose in the back is a little thicker. Oh, look at that. And this one is definitely not gonna pop off. the coolant system is closed again.
Oh, you can clearly see there's no oil in that coolant. And that coolant came out of the car and it's fairly new.
Now we're gonna pull a vacuum. You can see the hose is now flat in here. Completely flat, see that? Yeah. Now we close this up. And now we'll suck the coolant back in. Gotta make sure this stays submerged at all times.
So it's almost empty.
So now we're pumping it up to the exact 20 psi what we had before. And now we gotta wait 5 minutes and see if we have an improvement. And if we have an improvement, then the bypass circuit is the leaky one.
Okay.
Said King Christian. Okay, if you got a friend over and you work on his Discovery, you got to do some basic checks, okay? So you take a long tie wrap like this and you poke down here into the V on this car. And you poke around down there and then you pull it back up and then you show it to your friend.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so you need a new oil cooler. That sucks. Okay.
No.
Okay, now the oil cooler could also contribute to the coolant problem. But then I would suspect either oil in the coolant or coolant in the oil. But you definitely need a new oil cooler. We're not dropping anymore whatsoever, and we're already in, I would say, 2 or 3 minutes.
No, 5 minutes are over.
5 minutes are over, so we're good. And Vera is not around. And we dropped the 0.15, just like Land Rover recommended. Then this test was positive. It diagnosed basically now a leak in the EGR cooler system. I think we're gonna leave this blanked, but we're also gonna blank the exhaust section of it now. And then you're gonna drive 2 or 3 days like this. You get the spare parts and you come back and we replace both coolers, both EGRs and an oil cooler. Piece of cake.
Wow.
Okay, if you're not sure how much oil you got in your V, you check the engine in your kitchen, okay? See, I went down with the tie wrap right here and I can only get to here. So this entire channel is also full. So that's another 300 milliliters. And we had an oil level to here. So you have easily a liter of oil in here, for
That's
sure.
the oil I was missing.
And you can see this is completely closed up. And when the engine gets hot, this oil vapor gets into the atmosphere. You smell this. And who of you has such a tie wrap at home to check the oil level in a Discovery? So Vera, you missed something big time.
Oh my God.
I show it to you one more time. Okay, first of all, check this.
Oh, the pressure held.
It did not budge, okay?
Yes.
It's perfect after like at least 8 minutes. And watch that.
Oh my God.
We could connect our test system now to the circuit of the EGRs and pressurize it and see if it then loses. Okay, then we would have the opposite test. Let's do that. Now we're testing the circuit from the EGR valve cooler. So I'm connected to the EGR cooling system here, and I got the other end plugged with a cap. We're just above this dash here, okay? And we do 5 minutes. So 5 minutes are over, and if you check here, we have about the same loss, 0.4 bar, as we had before. It's a little less because I only pumped it up to 1 bar and not 1.5 because my setup here is not that strong. We verified it now out of 2 directions. We tested the coolant circuit without the EGR, no leak. We tested now the EGR coolant circuit, same leak as before. I got to take my cap off here out of our vacuum test kit. Just in case, we're gonna test my setup here. So I plug this here and I give this 1 bar again. It's a little bit above 1 bar, and we timed this also 5 minutes.
So he ruined it.
Yeah.
He started all over.
Yeah, it's at 1 now, and we
So
gotta
it's
wait
at
5
1
minutes.
bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the test setup didn't last.
We're a little bit over this one. Let's try
Yeah.
this. We tested our test setup, and the test setup did not leak. So we're 100% sure it was leaking through the EGR coolant circuit. One more thing we got to do is now blank the EGR valves, because if we don't cool them, we have to also blank them. So I got the EGR pipe removed here. We use some Permatex. And that's our blanking plate, goes on here. And we also put some on here, just for the heck of it. So we'll tighten these to 10 Newton meters. Click, click. Click, click. Done. So that the desktop mechanics have something to discuss. Gasket is in, 2 bolts are in. and we can give them 10 Newton meters. Clonk, clonk. And this one here. Click, click. If the car goes in limp mode with some sort of a plausibility issue on intake, we're gonna have to disable the butterfly here by removing it. Got it all filled up and everything closed up, and we got the EGR valves bypassed, cooler and exhaust circuit. And we hope it's not gonna catch on fire. As soon as I do something, Fabian is always afraid it's gonna catch on fire. And I never burned one down. A skateboard? You use a skateboard?
To go from A to B.
Oh, very well.
All right.
Good. So we're on a test drive now, and we display the throttle position flap here. This one is not supposed to change. If it changes, the engine would not get any longer any air because we closed up the EGRs. And you can see the EGR valves are here. They are actuating, but because they blanked, it don't matter anymore. We also display coolant here to see when we reach full coolant level, and now we check if we have any losses. That was a long talk. We got a low coolant display. We want to check now what the level is. It's low. Yeah, we'll fill it one more time. So we're back from the test drive, and now we're going to check how much coolant we still got left in there. It's good enough. And hopefully we didn't lose any. So because we have an unreliable coolant sensor, it gives us a warning even though the level is correct. We decided to fix that. We're not happy.
No.
Oh, there's a stone or something, huh?
A stone? Out of Africa?
Yeah.
Oh my God, doesn't that look familiar?
You gotta stop looking for problems. So I want to sum up what we all found now.
I just want to say, I blamed the oil cooler and I'm right.
Vera just found the condenser. Okay, air conditioning is still running, but you can see it clearly.
Yeah.
It's leaking here. We got the left-hand EGR cooler. We gotta put a new water manifold in. We're not sure if it's leaking, but it had a bad O-ring here in the back. You didn't see that yet. Touch this O-ring. Ooh. It's all hard.
Yeah, and it's square.
Okay, yeah, and it's pushed square.
Yeah.
We gotta put a new oil cooler in. That's for sure necessary. We put a new expansion tank in, including a switch. The EGR valve we're gonna leave. We tested those. They work nicely. So that's what we gotta do.
So that's like 500.
Yeah, it's a
600 euros.
It sums up, okay, but he gets the repair for free from LR Time.
So I made him delete the coolant bypass.
Yes. Now, the leak we found there is too small to cause the severe problems we see: the bubbling, the loss of coolant, and the most obvious thing we got left is a huge oil cooler leak. So we're gonna replace that oil cooler first.
Yes.
So, refilling again, and go. Using used coolant now, because we're gonna have to continue this repair next week, and that's when we fill new one. Jesus, there's a Discovery traffic backup in our driveway. So we gotta go on a second test drive because we installed this new coolant tank reservoir and also a new coolant manifold, a used one. So, test drive complete. Now this time we did not have a coolant
Jetzt ist die Klappe hoch.
message.
Auf 100%.
Beim Abstellen. So if you turn off the vehicle, it's closing it.
Jetzt ist aber wieder auf 14. Ne?
Wow. So that's what it's doing. So Fabian just said that the throttle position goes to 100% when you kill the power of the engine. So it closes this to shut it off, but it never closes it for EGR operation. Yeah, it's missing a little bit. Not much, but it's missing.
Oh, it's much better. It's missing, but it's much better than before.
And we didn't have a coolant sensor issue, so maybe it helped. Looks like we got a small EGR cooler leak, but a huge oil cooler leak. And I think the oil cooler is leaking coolant into the V and it's evaporating there. So we're gonna have to fix that next to an AC condenser leak. This was our checkup of a vehicle which was 10,000 kilometers in Africa, and he had a lot more problems. It was on the tow truck twice. So see you later. It's my queen, ready to be picked up. Let's go inside.
Yes.
Starting up my queen. I'm so happy. This is unbelievable. I think I didn't drive her now for like 8 or 9 weeks. She's hopefully not gonna scratch Prince Smallcrawl now. A Discovery is just a really pretty car. I think it's one of the strategies of Land Rover that if the workshop repair takes longer, that you are happier to get your vehicle back. Once you had a Range Rover, okay, you never want to miss it. That's just the thing. Yeah, that was clear she wants to go to McDonald's. Did I tell you how happy I am that I have my Range Rover back? The no speed limit sign is in the dash. That's a good thing. And the steering wheel is straight, so we can floor it. So the imperiousness one gets when driving a Range Rover is slowly coming back. I tell you what, the Queen has a little bit of a bad breath. Definitely needs some cleaning. I do that about twice a year in our cars where we run the AC. The problem is that the Range Rover has like an endless amount of openings. Okay, this is what it looks like if you spray this stuff. Okay, so kind of careful with it. So what's the first thing we gotta do when we get the Queen back? He said they did several drives with it, okay? Maybe they went to that new McDonald's we went to?
Yeah.
What? Take your fingernails off my paint. So 127 euros, so these V8s are sure thirsty, okay? Don't let anyone tell you they take less than the V6, okay? It's not true, unless you drive them like Miss Daisy. I can see the car was test driven because you can see the gas consumption went up. That's typical when you go short distance driving with it, okay? But you noticed it's difficult to get below 12 liters.
Yes.
Now, I'm not gonna spoiler everything here. We're gonna make a separate video on how all this turned out with the broken knuckle and so on, okay? I'm gonna spoiler this much. I got a big smile in my face, okay? I'm so happy, and that's not only because I got my V8 Queen back. There will be a detailed video where I show exactly how all this went and what Land Rover did and how it all turned out. But this video is gonna be too long and I want to dedicate a separate one to it. I think I owe that to Land Rover.
Let me show you now what I missed.
Yeah, what, the slow response from the buttons?
Massage seats.
Okay.
Christian already complained about the slow heated seats.
Yeah, well, the Queen is an old lady, okay? Not everything is really quick.
Pay attention and don't hit her.
The Queen got a warning system if I,
It didn't warn?
Yeah, because I wasn't in her lane, but if I would drive up to her, right behind her, Queen would warn me, okay? She doesn't like if I run over bicyclists.
Okay.
We gonna get one more vehicle now because we still have an engine. I got an engine at home, a Gen 2, which I can get into a runnable condition. I already got the crankshaft on my table. I already got the block. So I'm gonna put this engine back together and then I'm gonna get me a vehicle for it to put it in. And most likely, it's not gonna be a Land Rover. And because the Gen 2 engine fails in all vehicles, it's easy to find a dead one. And we got enough money to buy a dead one where we just drop our engine in.
But I saw the new Discovery today at the Land Rover shop and maybe I do want to get a new Discovery.
Enough in this video. At that point, I want to thank our Patreons a lot for their support and we'll see you guys
next Sunday.
Very well. I think I spoke your line.